Good morning, everyone. So, we had a wonderful Qigong class this morning, huh? Super duper. Super duper Qigong. Here we are. So, let's close our eyes for just a few moments and we'll meditate. Hi, Marla. There we go. So, we'll just focus in for a few minutes. And if we're located in our mind alone, we will either go down or up or however we do it and enter into awareness. Big moon, big sun. We'll focus in awareness, experiencing awareness, and then we integrate our minds into awareness. That's really been one of our major themes, huh? There's one knower, we're the knower, and we can know through our mind differences, stuff, and we can know through awareness, being, those dimensions. Then also, we've been exploring that third knowing, that intermediate range of knowing, since last summer, believe it or not. Went fast, eh? Here we are. And that's the archetypal dimension, Sambhogakaya. And that Sambhogakaya dimension, the archetypal, focused a lot on that and trying to bring it more forth in us, in our life. And this Sambhogakaya, this archetypal, there's many ways of looking at that, like there's many opinions about everything and anything. And one way, just as a side comment, like Jung struggled, is the archetypal simply a part of our mind. I have a personal unconscious, my history that I'd either have forgotten or never knew. I foreclosed the experience, right? And then there's also the generational field, unconscious, and there's a cultural unconscious, epical unconscious, lots of unconscious, and there's this archetypical unconscious. Is this part of my mind? Then I'm a psychologist, and he felt good being that, a psychoanalyst, but he was tormented because he also felt it was actually part of the manifestation of being itself. Then he goes into being a philosopher. Are you with me? And he switched back and forth. Near the end of his life, he started making the option that it was the manifestation of being itself, the energies of being, these powers of being, and that it does mix with the mind. So for some, and it mixes with the mind in terms of mythology. So for some, the Dark Mother is Mary, right, on one tradition. And from another, the Dark Mother, the mother is Yeshitogo, right? The mythology expresses these archetypical dimensions, okay? Then another way of looking at the archetypal world, this blend of the primordial being itself manifesting everything and anything, including our own mind, and the archetypal becomes our mind, becomes us, becomes the environment, a more ontological approach. And so yes, if that's making sense to you. Okay. And then, welcome, Karen. And then, also, there's other ways of looking at these archetypical energies, and some look at them as simply as the elements, And going back to the ancient way of fire, water, air, and it's the elements, And been reading more papers. In fact, I was I've been sending them out through academic EDU, if you read them, on how physics really is an archetypal way of thinking. All those little codes and things is actually another way of expressing another symbolic way of expressing the archetypical energies that are manifesting everything and anything, and then including us. And then another way we've looked at it here, we've been practicing that, is in terms of just the actual energy, the more primordial energies itself, vortexes and shapes of the energy. And we've been looking at that shapes of the energy and those fluids of energies, and working just with the energetic dimension as the archetypical expression. Even in Qigong this morning, with the arising of all that light and energy, you could see that as the manifestation also of the archetypical dimension becoming our own awareness. Say yes if you're following that. And then another way, and actually Jung was involved in that, is looking at the the planets, not at the planets as causes of everything, some kind of way, an external, mechanistic way. And in the West, we can look at it that way, mechanistic, and then we try and do predictions like good scientists and economists do, and it sort of works, but not really. But rather looking at that the primordial awareness manifesting the elements, and they manifest the elements both cosmologically, planets and infinite universes and suns and moons, and also the same manifestation is in our body, right? So the same energy is manifested in our body, and the same energy is manifested in our circumstances, right? So there is this mythological or archetypal continuation between how my life is unfolding, my mind's unfolding with these different energies, and how they're unfolding out there. Say yes if you understand that. So there's different ways of viewing the archetypical, but for those who came in late, we start off with, there's a way, we have two ways of knowing, to use that in a broadest sense, knowing with our mind, and knowing with our awareness, which knows the beingness of being itself. And I asked you guys to read a paper on that, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And and yet, in between that is this archetypical realm, And for most of us, many people, the archetypical realm is somewhat foreclosed experientially. At least how it seeps in is mostly belief. And we believe it as gods, deities, but they're all outside of us. They're all the transcendental otherness. They're out there. And so you beg them for help, and they might be nice to you, offer things to them, kill animals, and it assuages them to be nice to you, blood, life force offerings. Other ways of looking at it is that the gods, or as the Greeks, the mystic Christians would say God is love, and the Greeks would say, and others, love is a god. So another way of looking at this, that the gods are all within us. So as Swami Muktananda would say in the church, God lives within you as you. He's describing this more eminent rather than this transcendental framing of divinity, more incarnational. And so in this way of dealing with archetypes, you are bringing them forth more in your experience. Say yes if you understand that. Raise that little hand that we're together. You don't understand that? Someone? Okay, great. Because they can mean and these are all opinions. You can choose the one you like, and yours, and work it that way. And it all can work or not work out as it goes. So we've been focusing a lot on the archetypal since last June, and we've been focusing on working with each other, bringing forth the archetypical dimension, and in our own way working with our own self, bringing forth the archetypal dimension. And then, how many people think they're doing that? This is not a moral moment. How many people have been playing with bringing forth the archetypical dimension within their bodies? Could you raise a finger? A hand, because I really like to know if it really helped. Okay. Does it make a difference? Does it make a difference? And then we start talking about being in the realm of good and evil and being beyond good and evil. One time, a long time ago, I had some kind of clearance. Sometimes I saw CIA people and occasionally FBI people. And there was sometimes a visitor where that group, the interrogation group in FBI land, where they take the really bad people, the serial killers, and they debrief them. And so one time some came to visit to discuss, in fact, somewhat more esoteric, because some of these people are just little weenies. You with me? Weak little weenie people. And sometimes they're not even so bright, actually on the stupid side. And yet they're able to carry off these horrible, horrible crimes for long times. And there was some discussion about the archetypal dimension in this, just a little opening the door of that thinking, because it sort of makes sense sometimes that the archetypes, people are possessed by the archetypes. Jung used to talk about that, being possessed by the archetype, either for good or not for good. We're all together right now, sort of, hanging out. So, then we began talking last week, began again exploring, like we did last year at one time, being in the realm, being beyond good and evil, as the yogis say, get beyond good and evil. What? Get beyond right and wrong, get beyond better and best, get beyond truth and falsity, What? And yet living in the realm of good and evil, better and best, truth and falsity, right and wrong, It's a challenge, eh? Raise the hands if you know that challenge, if you feel it, if that makes sense to you. So again, starting back where we have mind that knows forms and individuals and differences, and awareness that knows being and oneness. So we began exploring conflict, Because it's in conflict where we start experiencing good and evil. I'm good and you're evil. That's true. Often in conflict, at least. Or it could be I'm evil and you're good. But when it comes to conflict, as we start to explore it, we explored it more in mind last week, exploring, we all slip into, at times, an existential borderline state. You may have noticed this, that when it comes to good and evil, and a conflict starts to rise. It could be between us and our dog. It can be us and our cat, us and our neighbor, us and our friends, us and spouses, us and groups, countries, all this thing. But as we start in the conflict starts to arise and starts to happen. We start splitting, dissociating, and even falling apart. And in that splitting moment, good and evil, the felt sense of good and evil begins to arise. And you're evil and I'm good. Haven't you ever had that ever? Now some people are that they're evil and everyone else is good. That's even a tougher route. You with me? Yeah. That's harder. Yeah. That's not user friendly. You with me? Trump is evil. Pure evil. And we're good. So here we are, confronting goodness and evil from the realm being beyond good and evil, which is the realm of awareness. Now that's hard to sustain ourselves in awareness, especially when conflict arises, right? It's really easy to be in awareness, nice rooms, singing, good smells, Hare Ram, I love Hare Ram, Hare Krishna. So conflict easily results in existential states. And often as psychologists or therapists, we pathologize everything. So only a certain type of people are borderline, right? Borderline, those poor borderline people. Or this or that. But actually, these pathologies are in certain ways much more existential and reflective of the dilemma of being an existing human being in a mind and body and circumstances. Raise your hands if you've thought that at least one time in your life, okay? So, living in the sea of oneness is not easy with all the differences. This is true. So sometimes we exclude differences to not have that dilemma. There's no difference. We're all good. It's all goodness. It's just all goodness. And we do away with duality. A lot of non-dual traditions love that. You with me? They just love that. All good. Or another favorite way is we do away with non-duality. It's all fucking duality. You with me? And other than that, it's hocus pocus. You with me? Hocus pocus. Just hocus pocus. And so it's all duality. Have you ever felt those extremes in you? Mm-hmm. But the paradox of duality within non-duality and non-duality within duality can sustain vitalness. So sometimes, in order to sustain oneness alone, and sometimes in order to sustain just oneness alone, we do everything and anything to sustain that oneness with a person. You with me? Everything and anything. No matter what they do, whatever happens, we're in that oneness with them. And that can at times fall into the sea of masochism, suffering. You know, you see this in religious groups and all kind of things where I want to be in oneness with you no matter what. No matter what, I'm going to be in oneness with you because it feels so good. You with me? Mm-hmm. And that's what God wants also, right? So masochism can arise out of that desire. You know, that's why a lot of spiritualities, we ask questions like, a lot of spiritualities have sometimes masochistic undercurrents. You may have noticed that, huh? In some kind of way, by submitting to the masochistic requirements, you will live a blessed life. Or death, because you can't wait to get out of here. I think I'm in one of those moods again today. We'll continue on. So, when we're in mind alone in conflict, it can at times result in isolation, right? It's really hard in conflict to sustain that indivisibility with the other. In conflict, it is hard to sustain indivisibility with the other. It is hard to sustain oneness with the other. It is hard to sustain love with the other. And so as the conflict intensifies, splitting starts to take place. Splitting within our minds, bad dog, good person. We start to split, or good people, bad dog here, and we also start to split relationally. We start to split. So it's not only in my mind am I splitting how I'm saying, but I'm also now starting to split within me that what was indivisible between myself and the other starts to dissolve. And rather having spaciousness and light, it is an emptiness, nihilism between myself and the other and this world. Raise your hand if you ever had that. I just want to be making true confessions here, you know. Becoming naked awareness. So conflict, you know. As long as there's no conflict, we're there, we've got it. No conflict. Yeah. But when conflict arises, even between us and our dogs, friends, children, people, conflict. So being in mind alone, and there's a lot of techniques and skills for being in mind alone, and they all are really great. Because all this is not quite resolvable. It's one of these eternal challenges for liberation. But, as they say, if you can integrate your mind into this awareness, and the support becomes the awareness between us and not simply our minds alone, then we can sustain that indivisibleness in spite of and when our light of our mind goes into. Say yes again if that's making sense. So I'm going to go back to where I began last time with that story about Dr. Yen. Dr. Yen Chin, because that was really a very dramatic, I thought, learning moment. So did I say this story last week? The Yen Chin? Okay, let me just pick it up again. So this is a Yen Chin thing, about 800 people, most of them Chinese, and a good bit of Americans there. And he's giving this big, he's going to do a transmission talk, and it's in Rockville, blah, 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 except we bombed the Chinese embassy the week before, okay? And meanwhile, all the Chinese embassy happened to be invited for this. So there's the Chinese ambassador and all the Chinese people are here. And then all kind of Qigong masters came. So it's a very dramatic setup. And some of you guys were there also. Who was there? Anybody there? Okay. Same group, okay. We're there too. And then my brother's there, one of my brothers with his son who had just been diagnosed with a brain tumor and a few things like this. So for me, there's a lot of stuff up for grabs here. So Yen comes on and he's really looking nervous. I've never seen Dr. Yen look nervous, and he's drinking water all the time. This is not a good signal. And then he starts his talk. Now I'm sort of sitting in front of him as kind of like a little master of ceremonies and that kind of stuff. And he starts giving this talk. American fucking imperialist. Oh. Exactly, right? Holy shit.
All my kids look at me and say, "You brought me here."
You brought me here. I see my brothers, my son's there, the rock band's there. And he's foaming. The great mantra arises in me, what the fuck? So, I connect to him as much as I possibly could with the energy that was present in the field. Because in all that energy, it was hard not to be in the field that moment. I would say it was just, so this connection's there, face to face, en fait. And then arises, he's going through this, and I mentioned this because I thought it was funny, but it just arose, born in the USA. So I started singing this song to myself, to him. You with me? I was standing against him at that moment. Which is really the best way to relate to teachers, right? If you're only nice to your teachers, you never know what they are or you are. So to be authentically challenging to a teacher is liberation or weeniehood, you know. So as I focused there with him, he started giving this talk, born in the USA, blah blah. The host and the song just came up naturally. Standing with, and then you stand against. In the field, in the field. So I felt this connection, this fire, and this intense focus, but not broken. You follow what I mean? Or defeated. Or defeated. Then he stops, drinks more water. Now I will talk on the talk I just gave. That's what he did. I'm going to talk on the talk I gave. And he then gave a meta talk on conflict, right? He's living it out in the moment. And I tried to get a copy of the talk desperately. You with me? I wanted to have it, but I couldn't get one from the powers that be. Was. But he said this: conflict is absolutely necessary. You will never, ever be free of conflict. There will be conflict, even if you live totally by yourself with the elements. There will always be conflict. And if you're afraid of conflict, or your only thought is never ever to be in conflict, you will become exhausted by conflict. Does conflict exhaust us? Conflict exhausts us. It wears you out. Spoke about that too. So, and if you're in mind alone, he would talk this way also. There is no way out of the conflict. There's no resolving it. Whether you win or lose, you are still in the frame of conflict. Say yes if you understand what I'm saying there. So then, he said, to live in this world of conflict. And he went into an elaboration from the Taoist point of view of the elements, right? The Taoist, or the focus on the, like, not unlike the Dzogchen, the elements, the fire element, the water element, creating everything and anything. And all these elements, though in one level they're harmonious, but another level they're in conflict. Planets are crashing, elements, this, that, this movement. From the elemental view that we're in, there's conflict, drama. Then he started going into being in the Qigong state. You know? So this morning, if we're in Qigong state with Mr. Ma, we're in awareness state. We're in the awareness state. Huh? And as you're in the awareness state, he starts talking about the power of being in the awareness state with the conflict. Then he said something he would often say. First, that virtue is a source of the qi. Even there. Virtue is a source of the qi, little thing there. That by having courage and virtue, that brings up the light and the energy. Then conflict is a source of the qi. Pop! It's a source of energy. Conflict, life force, vitality. Right? And in a certain way, they're meeting within you both the conflict and virtue. Isn't that an astounding statement, huh? So, I don't know about you, but little smooth lakes, clear sky, no conflict, huh? Kumbaya, you with me? And the more we hold that as the only focus, you with me, then conflict is going to drive us really crazy, as if it should never be. Do you follow that? As if it should never, ever be. And yet, it's there. It's there in families. It's there in friendships. It's there in all the forms of couples at times. It's there in politics, God. It's there in countries. It's there in Syria. It's there, all this place, conflict arising, and simultaneously peace. By being in the awareness state, you can experience both peace and conflict simultaneously. The Qigong state. And the importance of the fire element and how to work the fire element in order to transform one's own self and also transform situations. That was his talk, as far as I remember. So I felt better hearing that talk. So I go, just to make a little ending here, go talking to people, and then I spoke to my nephew, Uncle Rudy. He says, I said, what happened, Jared? He says, I don't know, but there's this big flash of light. You know, I said, really? So about a couple of months later, they went, and then he had x-rays, and to put a little topping on this story, they could not find the tumor. And he's 35 years old, 30 years old today, and he's doing great. But that's a story that I love. Hoshaka! Fire. The fire element, right? So sit there for a moment. So being in awareness, being in this awareness, as Dr. Yen's talk, being in awareness and integrating our mind into awareness, integrating the moon, which is pretty big last night, into the sun, allows us to have a mastery at some level of conflict. And also, what happens is rather than the bond between being broken, the bond is sustained, huh? The bond is sustained when the bond is the field. If it's just me liking you and you liking me, that's great till we have a conflict. Then I don't like you anymore, and you don't like me anymore. But the bond of awareness, of the light, of the interconnectedness, of the field, which is the self, actually. That's why it is the self. It is the self, holds conflict. So the more we can hold the bond between us of the field, then conflict will be there, but will cause less fragmentation. Even if you win, you're fragmented. And less defeat, and less dissociation, and less disembodiment, and all those hazards of conflict. So that is why, that's why the field is not just within me, the field is between us, right? So the first thing on the Nirmanakaya level, Nirmanakaya level, to be able to be in the field, no matter what the fuck's coming down, with people, with persons, especially those who matter, is to be in the field in a Nirmanakaya level. And when you're in the field in a Nirmanakaya level, and not just the empathetic level, to use a Kleinian frame, which I like at times, when I'm thinking in a Kleinian frame in conflict, I'm going to be empathizing with you. And it's called the depressive form. The Kleinians, they call it the depressive level, right? Say right if you know anything about Klein. It's depressive. And it's depressive because, number one, I can tolerate loss somewhat. But it's also depressive because I'm going to be internalizing your feelings. You with me? And the heroic thing from the Kleinians is I can transform the feelings that I'm internalizing. Except in time, they kept feeling people were getting very depressed. and very sick. You with me? So if you're using empathy as your major way of dealing with conflict, and you're internalizing all that stuff, it works up to a point, but eventually it can dissipate you. You with me? And then also what happens is, from the Kleinian point of view, which I actually like, in conflict, if we leave the empathetic mode, because we're getting our feelings hurt, I'm going to fall back into my favorite all-American mode, which is the paranoid schizoid state. You with me? In the paranoid schizoid state, I'm hypervigilant and I'm a victim. You with me? Because I'm paranoid now of you. You with me? Yeah. Not only that, in my paranoid schizoid state, I rewrite the narrative. I just have to rewrite the story. Up to that moment, I thought, we were buds. Now I'm rewriting the story. You with me? And all kind of data is coming into my mind, validating my paranoid schizoid state, right? Have you been in a paranoid schizoid state ever? It's really not much fun, because there's two things about it that make it unhappy. One, you're very suspicious, you're hypervigilant, has its own anxiety about it, and also you're empty. That is the problem, because the schizoid state is an empty state. There's no fullness to it, there's no self to it, right? We all know, you really want to know this in yourself one time. So in the favorite paranoid schizoid state, you're there, but you're empty. Arden Lane writes exquisitely about this, the empty self, huh? And you're in the void, but it's not the void of the sunyata, it's not the full void. It is a nihilistic space, and you're paranoid. This is not easy. You with me? And in that state, I can resolve nothing, and couples can resolve nothing in that state. There is, only if I leave that state can something take place when we're in these states, and they're all very state dependent. These are the states. Now, there's another state I can go into, because being in the paranoid schizoid state is really not easy. So I can take one more shift back, and then I fall into my autistic state. And I'm not talking about autistic children. That's but in the analytic thing, the autistic state is a great state because I have no anxiety. It's really won the bar. There's no anxiety. It's everything is pretty much a matter of fact, and I'm untouched by whatever happens around me. You with me? And I'm sort of lonely, but not really. Only if I leave it do I feel what loneliness is. You with me? It's sort of like being a box or an object. Raise your hands if this is making sense to you. So these are some from this favorite ways as we're in a conflict. We can go into these. We can also go into inflated states, and conflict can push us into very great inflated states, okay? And we get inflated. We get grandiose. You with me? And that is another way of living in conflict. So sometimes if we live in conflict a lot, we're going to be in inflated states. And we're always going to think we're smarter and bigger than we really are, and we constantly impose that on every situation. You with me? It has its own thrill to it. It does have a thrill. It has its own excitement to it. You with me? But and it's considered the God realm in Buddhism. The God realm. So you're in that God state. You're really great. But the dilemma is when the God falls, they really fall hard. You know, it's sort of like. It's sort of not yet, but who was the general? One of the generals. Are you guys following this? So for conflict without being in the field, and in the life of couples, friendship couples, married couples, business couples, where conflict arises, bonding shifts away and bondage remains, a form of bondage. You're in it. And in it, love starts to disappear, and you're in it for pragmatic reasons alone, right? It becomes pragmatic deals. Let me continue on. Almost done with some of this. Now that is on the Nimanakaya level, right? That's not fun, right? Suffering. Wrong thing. We're looking for here. Almost. Now. Blah, 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 blah. Loneliness, isolation, paranoia. We lose the great expanse. I liked Heidi's work last week. That little piece of work she did in her mind, and then she goes into the great expanse with it. Opens up, right? The great expanse. No space. The great expanse. So when in our paranoid schizoid state, there's no space. And we do see this in couples work, couples therapy, the conflict of oneness and separateness, of duality and non-duality. And if you look, a lot of things around oneness and separateness. You have to oneness and separateness. One of the things in Freud's book, Ego and Group Psychology. You know that book, Ego and Group? Anybody know that book? Well, it has to do with this topic of oneness and separateness, okay? One of his last books. And the price of oneness can be the loss of individuation, right? In group phenomena. So when a group makes a decision, and Marla was picking that up for us at times, when a group makes a decision, and we're involved in group decisions, you with me? The actual existential reality of the decision is not quite on us. We're in a group mind. That's why group minds are very, very dangerous. You think they're dangerous in politics. They're dangerous in spirituality. If this is a group mind alone here, you're fucked. Really, you have no more mind of your own. You know, my voice becomes your mind. You with me? That happens, right? That happens in churches and stuff and rhetoric and drama. So if there's a group mind, a decision is made by the group, but there's not necessarily any mind in charge of that. But the existential aloneness is not there. So one of the powers of decision making when you're not in a group mind is you feel the aloneness of the existential decision. You actually feel that you're actually making a decision that is your own. You actually feel existentially present to the moment. Raise your hands if that's making sense to you, okay? Now, they do say two awarenesses are better than one, but that is if we both are individuals in that moment, right? So I'm bringing up now the part of the group phenomena that actually seems to be oneness, but it's oneness at the cost of individuatedness. It's the cost of personhood. And when traditions don't trust personhood and they don't experience the value of personhood, I don't trust those traditions. I think they're missing something essential to human beingness. You with me? And it's fine if you like that sort of thing. But personhood is awareness itself. It is Dharmakaya manifesting as moi in time and space, huh? But as a subject and as personhood. And when there's no personhood, then the realm of objectification, which happens often in conflict. You were a person, and now you're no longer a person, because I'm now shifting into a subject-object frame, not into subjective. And in the falling into objective frames, you become an object, and at that point, anything can happen when human beings are objectified. And you actually see this in politics, in governments, where people are objectified, and the loss of personhood. No, loss of psyche, mind alone. Almost done. So now, that's only in our mind. That's our mind. That's Nirmanakaya drama. That's all Nirmanakaya stuff, right? A lot of variation in there. So what about Sambhogakaya? And what about Dharmakaya? Now, they really aren't that separate. This is an artificial thing that I'm doing of it. So, are we together? So, does it help to invoke the archetypal dimension in order to transform a Nirmanakaya experience? That is the question. Does it help? And to me, that is, if I believe that alone, I'm a jerk. If I just believe that, I'm now a believer, and I'll be haunted by doubt. And I'm not really looking to what my experience is manifesting for me. A believer. Doubt with a cover over its head. Now, so, how do I experience the archetypal dimension? And from the tradition that we present here, and do I have the power of invocation yet? Do I have the power of invoking this dimension in my own life, in my own mind, in my body, and in my circumstances? Archetypes are not simply within us. Archetypes are both non-dual and dual, to use this language. They're both all over the place. And as they arise, say one of us is invoking the archetype and it's arising, then it is both within this person who's it's rising in, but it's also within everyone else. Say yes if that makes sense to you. Mm-hmm. Yes. So the archetypal dimension, the energy, the space, but it has qualities to it. Spheres, S-P-H-E-R-E-S. You with me? We look at the guru as an archetype. It is primordial awareness that reveals itself experientially to us. You with me? Through ourselves or through other events and people. You with me? Or say the Divine Mother. I love the Divine Mother in a certain form. So that energy comes into me and it starts really balancing me, that maternal dimension can come through me, and be present to me, both within me and around me. You follow? So we start personifying the archetypal thing. That making sense to you? And then you've met people in your life who personify the archetype more than others, and then so they have that power comes through them for benefit of us and benefit of people. It also benefits them. So it's both dualistic and non-dualistic. So the question is, do you have that experience? Do you have some experiential felt sense or even experiential evidence? I like that story about my nephew because that was a worthwhile evening for me. It was really worth it. You with me? Forget about everything else. Forget about all the Chinese people. Forget about everything else. From a nepotistic point of view, it was really useful and happy for me and my family. You follow what I mean? So you want to see what is the evidencia, what experience is around me. So let's pause with that. And I loved when Mary was here that everyone was sharing those archetypal experiences. Remember that? Great.
Yes.
So we're going to focus again. Then the next question, and this has to do with both personal life and political life and love and money and illness in any area you want to place it. And if you only place this on lamas or holy people or maharukas or that sort of thing, you are missing your own destiny. Those people only exist functionally for you. To me, to think otherwise than that, I think is a really big mistake in my life if I do that. You don't have to believe that. They're very functional. So, the third is Dharmakaya. Do you experience the manifesting of undeterminate potentiality? Now, undeterminate potentiality sounds really nice, but we're taking away the name God, we're taking the name Shiva, we're taking it's another man, taking away all those implied entifications, which they're not, but this experience of complete undetermined moments, duration, potentiality. Potentiality is not determined. If potentiality is determined, it's not potentiality. And to feel yourself in that place sometimes is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Because it does open up as vastness and just the openness of it. That's what sunyata truly means. Herbert Gunther Trumpa, sunyata, openness, unbound openness. Do I feel that unbound openness? And can I invoke it? Can I enter into it? We're going to pause there, because that really is our question. Is this thing that we do worth it for me and for you? It's worth it. Do we actually, or are we waiting for Godot? I really mean that. Or are we waiting for Godot? With one day something will happen. Maybe. At the moment of my death. That never sounds like a good deal to me. Let's sit for a moment. And do I actually have a praxis? I don't mean practice where I'm sitting doing the same little thing every day. But do I have a praxis where I actually relate to this invocation, bringing forth of the archetypal in my life situation with everybody? And also, do I experience the power of undeterminate potentiality? Because that really opens up fixed states and fixed situations, right? Fixed people, fixated stuff. Say yes if you understand what I'm saying. So hang out with this. And am I gaining mastery of this? Am I actually gaining mastery? Do I feel that, number one, I'm gaining mastery with my mind being in this awareness in all the conflicts that I know? Number two, do I feel the power of the archetypal, that I have the companionship of the archetypal dimension? And number three, do I dare? Muktananda always says, to do this, you have to be daring and bold. If you have false senses of humility, false senses of unworthiness, nothing's going to happen. So, would someone mind describing either one of the last two? The feeling, I would say the virtue, which is courage, of experiencing indeterminate potentiality. Or the archetypal dimension coming forth. Yes.
But after the experience, of course, I was really afraid. So you get the opposites there. But I'm living in India. I've been meditating in an ashram. It's all lovely. But I have to get a new visa. So I have to leave. I have to go over to the border with Nepal, where very few people go. And it's kind of shaky.
And scary.
Lots of stuff happening, transition, blah, blah, an empty dam, and you have to cross a bridge, and there's no customs people. I have to find them.
Oh, God. You're in the wild.
Yeah, it's just, so, but I'm coming back, and I say, okay, well, I had to do all this. Let me stop in Nainital, this, beautiful hillside place, the British hillside. And you have to go up a mountain. And of course, I'm vomiting the whole time out of the bus, and I'm not the first that,
Indian buses, yeah.
There. Then I'm walking through the market. I stay a few days, and I end up on a motorcycle taxi. And I didn't know at the time, but I end up at Neem Karoli Baba's ashram.
Oh, cool.
Krishna Das.
So cool.
Time, right?
So cool.
And I thought I was just going.
Lama was also there. He lived there for a year. Lama.
Oh.
Yeah, it was his teacher for a while. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
So what happened, honey?
And so it was completely empty, the ashram, and I just went down and I sat in front of his murti, with the hat and the blanket. And next thing I know, my head is down like this, and I'm crying for 20 minutes. I have no idea what's going on, but I'm in India, whatever. And then we go back around, and I'm walking through the market the next day, and it's kind of sketchy. I'm by myself, and the places I'm staying.
Sketchy.
And I'm walking across this huge field by the lake there in Nainital, and I have to go down some steps, and there's not many people around, and all of a sudden I know that there's a dog coming, and I feel some fear, and then there's this Indian, I don't know if it was a man or a boy, but very tall, thin Indian person behind me on the steps, and there's nobody else around, and you're kind of hidden in this huge field. And so I turn really quickly, and I lifted this Indian guy up, and I put him over here between me and the dog. and then I'm on the open plain. I'm walking across this big, huge field, towards the lake. But I have this residue of anger, so I'm turning around, and I'm, kind of gesticulating and yelling at the Indian guy, because my feeling was that he had come to do harm to me, not really the dog. And I I didn't know how I could lift him up and put
Yeah,
him over
amazing,
there,
huh?
but what, just whatever. But anyway, so I know it was an indeterminate state, but the feeling as I walked back across the field was of very powerful strength, but huge fear.
I love your story, and your story brings something also about the archetypes that I did not talk to, and that's when you're in the ashram and you bow down to Nirkali Baba, and suddenly you feel the arising out of devotion, the energy. So devotion is perhaps the most direct, exquisite way to invoke the archetypical dimension, and so to me that story is really a story of there, in a very having wandered into a scary and not always safe at all, especially for women. And so this active, to me, the act of devotion, to frame it, this may not be true, but the act of devotion, suddenly you're filled with the power of this guru, this light, this energy, which is awareness, in its indeterminateness, its unpredictability, and its power. And then this event takes place, and then you do this event. But the devotion component is essential to this. Thank you so much. Great story. Anybody else has a story of either just whether it works or not, how they are bringing forth within themselves or around themselves this archetypical dimension? Yes.
So, long ago, I lived on the south side of Chicago, and I had a large dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that when
Is this the dog you brought here? Or another dog?
no,
Okay.
This was a shepherd mix, and she could diagnose someone who was afraid of dogs or a lover of dogs in an instant.
In an instant, right?
She would go to the dog lover and be like, "Love me," and if someone had a fear of dogs, she would lunge at them. So
That's great.
there's an indeterminacy there.
Right.
Which way will it go?
How is it going to go?
I also knew from living in the city how to feel from a long way off when somebody was feeling to see whether they wanted to be a predator.
Yeah, right?
They were measuring my availability for that experience. Can we be intimate in this way? Can they attack me?
Yes. And it's very intimate moment.
And,
Yeah.
and so there's this little Jedi mind trick. You can go to stability. You can go to I'm impervious. I don't have a place for you to hook that on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not
Okay.
gonna happen.
Cool.
And I noticed that one of the things I would do there is I would start yawning. Like, I'm so safe, I can yawn. And sometimes I'd see this kind of like, but I thought maybe we would dance, but you're yawning. And it was sort of like this shield that would take me to
A shield,
spaces. So I think those two things, seeing those two things juxtaposed, that moment of will the dog attack, will the dog lick you, or will someone else attack me, and what's my disposition and what do I bring to it?
Cool. Beautifully said. Someone else has anybody practice invoking? Yes, Tom.
I'm not sure about this one, but it's coming up for me.
Okay.
Back
Self-arising.
in my street fighting days.
Yep.
It was a Friday night, and guys were pissed off at us because of some girl thing. So we went up to this bowling alley and we beat the shit out of these guys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we go back to the bar that we're hanging out in. 2 or 3 in the morning. There's about 4 of us there. 3 carloads of guys.
Uh-oh.
Bowling alley come out.
Uh-oh.
We're in deep. And I'm the leader of these guys. What am I gonna do? So, of course, I was pretty drunk, but it's amazing. I could wake up just like that.
Alertness.
Just like that. And so what I do is I run out the front door and run. I can imagine these guys are with me saying, "Look at him, he's leaving. What's going on?" And so they're coming up, and I just come running up behind them.
Uh-huh.
And I start hitting them.
Mm-hmm.
I start banging. Somebody hits me over the head with a pipe. Somebody sticks a gun in my I push them. And all of a sudden, all these guys are running, and we run. Somehow, that certainly was some kind of an archetype.
Mm-hmm. An energy.
That I invoked, that powerful thing that somehow that was able to, I felt that when you think of it, it felt godlike in the sense of complete completely powerful.
Mhm.
And just knowing how to do that.
Mhm.
It's strange.
Do you still do you feel the resonance that energy even in you today?
Oh, absolutely.
That is
Yeah.
part
That,
of you.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm going to go just take another step with you.
Yeah.
And these are all just nominalistic things. Do you feel a particular, that the feeling, the phenomena, has an archetypical quality? You with me? Is there any, from history or traditions, any archetypical energy or deity or that you associate with this that you bring forth with it nowadays? Just as a question of curiosity. It's not necessary. They don't have to have names.
Well, certainly like the archangel or something.
So the
Like
angels.
Lucifer or something. Powerful.
Yeah. Okay. So in the Christian traditions, the archangels, Michael, or like Dujidrolo.
Yeah.
It's the kind of the same invocation of the energy from within ourselves. You with me? So these powerful, angelic, Michael destroying the demon, and you take those archetypical things and you can translate them cross culturally, where other forms of dramatic force, fierceness is used to dissolve the demonic within our own self and in circumstances.
And it also plays out in the knowing sense.
In what sense is knowing?
In the sense that I gotta know it's true. I'm not gonna listen to the bullshit. I can go beyond what the group think, the group mind. I can hold on to my truth that way. I can buck up against the system, just like I was bucking up against the legal system and all that physical system.
So
I can hold my own.
yeah. So it's very interesting because that song, I Did It My Way,
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra's song, I heard someone sing it last night on The Voice. It was fantastic. The guy had lost and he'd come back. And did he win? I went to bed. Okay, Sundance. But it was a fantastic song because there is this authenticity that arises out of doing things authentically. You with me? Authentically. Now, there's a tension in that, and the tension in being authentic is being creative. They absolutely can go together. But there's a tension at times. We have to know all this tension of being an authentic person, but a creative person at the same time. You with me? Because if you're an authentic person and you're on the edge of indeterminacy, you're going to learn new things and become broader. If you're authentic but you're not in indeterminacy, you'll become a fixated person. You with me? And you will wear out and you will be time bound. So this is why that potentiality, which she's described, and you're describing the rising of potentiality, and the feeling of potentiality. So we're going to pause for a minute. So sometimes pain, I'm getting another way. Sometimes pain is really terrible in this world. You with me? Pain. And one of the great types of things that people, in order to protect themselves, they impose pain on other people, right? That's one of our favorite ways. In order to protect myself, we're going to impose pain on others. And the more pain we impose, the more safe we're going to be. This is a very working assumption of countries. And so the more pain I impose, the safer I'm going to be. And that cruelty, that imposing of pain, that cruelty, that imposing of suffering actually will destroy me in time, okay? Now, but there is pain and suffering, and sometimes with illness there's pain and suffering, and I'm getting a little distracted, but I'm going to go into this right now. One of the ways of working with pain and suffering is by being able to access from the Manakaya into Sambhogakaya, into Dharmakaya. And if you can find the traces, or if you have a person with you who can do it with you, because sometimes when you're in a lot of pain, things don't work right. Even I have the capacity to access the Dharmakaya. I'm in a lot of pain, so my mind is being organized by the pain, and I can't leave the fucking pain. I am now pain. If this person, though, and I enter into some kind of connection, and she goes into Dharmakaya, that trace can be reinvoked in me, and then I can go into Dharmakaya with her. You follow me? Or as I go start going into words Dharmakaya, she focuses on me, her awareness, which is strong, and she pushes her awareness into me. I'm gonna do it this way. As Dharmakaya, and that can help me leave in my embodiment and go into the Dharmakaya. Sometimes being in the body is really good, and sometimes being in the body really is not good. So the capacity to be able to trace, and this is why having a practice of entering the Dharmakaya by itself, pure, open, luminous darkness, no one there, indeterminateness, pure potentiality, is where healing truly takes place. Dr. Yen used to also talk about that dimension, that some healers work at the level of mind, do this, do that. Some work at the level of pneumonikaya, they transmit the energy that way. A lot of us can do that somewhat here, for sure. We should by now. And some at the level of the archetypical realm. But the most powerful is the being who's in Dharmakaya, because that happens spontaneously around them. You with me? So even, it may not be always spontaneous, but to be able to access the Dharmakaya in pain, let's do it together. So we're going beyond mind, we're going even beyond the Namanikaya, we're even going beyond the Sambhogakaya. Though we may use the Sambhogakaya like invoking the Dark Mother, which is the intermediary between the Sambhogakaya. You guys following the language here and the Dharmakaya? To go into pure Dharmakaya. Now to have that space and that rest, at that moment, I am not being organized by the pain. It is not only a result experience, it is also a causal experience, use causality in the loose sense, because I can reshape the pain possibility out of potentiality. I'm not going to be able to do it with my mind, but anytime I'm in true potentiality, which is the moment of death also, if I'm in true potentiality, then those strings, those traces might be broken between myself, so I may come back with much less pain. Say yes if you're understanding what I'm describing here. And this is something, it's not hypnosis in the regular sense, okay? Though Milton Erickson spoke about hypnosis through dissociation, through absorption. He's a really great, great yogi. So there is this way of helping people, including your own self, if you're well practiced. If you're not well practiced, you're pissing in the wind, you're wishing for something that'll never happen. You with me? But if you practice, that's why praxis brings this forward, then you can be of help to people who are in terrible pain. If they can feel a connection to you, you feel a connection to them, they have some capacity. It can open up, and then as we both go into it together, and then you drop back, and I'm remaining in that. Number one, it's a relief for the immediacy of pain, which is so fantastic. But at a deeper level, I am actually in the realm of indeterminate potentiality, and something may happen different for me. Raise your hands if you're thinking that way. Yes, please.
And what if the person is not aware that you're trying to do this? Do they have to join at some level?
I think two awarenesses knowing it are better than one knowing it. Now, sometimes very powerful people can do that. You with me? But I think if you really love somebody and you have a deep connection with them, just like they're more susceptible to projection from me, they're also more susceptible to transmission. So if you are susceptible to projection from a person, you right? You with me? It's also indicates there's a conduit between you and that person, that person may be equally susceptible at the less conscious level to transmissions from you. Say yes if you understand what I'm saying. You follow that?
And couples in love.
Couples in love. Couples in love are experiencing the transmission of awareness. The beingness of being is manifesting. Anytime we fall in love, and all this stuff about just being delusion, when we fall in love with, for whatever reason, that person, the beingness of being is shining through, bliss is shining through. The only dilemma, we can't sustain it, you know. So then once it happens, how to sustain it is the same deal. So I like this part about pain. So what we're really trying to get is a feeling of working with these dimensions. Now, if you guys only come here and pay me $40, we're trying to move into another. This is the end of this semester, right? We're finished with this semester. And if you're not really practicing and you come and you like it, you like Lorette, you like Skip, you know, you like everybody. It's a nice group of people. and you hear me blab hour, but really and truly, if you're not working this in the ways that can be worked, you are wasting your time and you're wasting your money. You're just wasting it. You're just wasting it. Most of this stuff is entertainment. Most teaching is entertainment. Most spiritual teaching is entertainment. And we love entertainment. We love entertainment. We love entertainment. This is entertaining. Actually, whatever his name is, the new is entertaining in his own way. You with me? He's entertaining. Come on, he is. He's entertaining. And we love entertainment. We love all sorts of entertainment. We love, just look at TV. We love horror entertainment. We love news. We love all spirituality. Awareness is an entertaining thing. Don't you think so? It's entertaining. And you have to ask, am I doing this on my own really? And if you're not doing it on your own really, just send me the money. You don't even have to come. I'll pray for you, okay? Send me the money. Save the gas. Send me the money. Do you follow what I mean by this? So let's focus for a minute. Yes, Tom.
Following up on Nancy's question, when we talk about morphogenic resonance,
Yep.
where when
Yep.
part of a species
Yep.
evolves into a particular way of being,
Yep.
it makes it easier for every other.
Absolutely.
If I'm sitting alone in a cave and I'm able to hold that potentiality, that system, that
Everybody will benefit. I'm of the prejudice, though, what you see is what you get, okay? And that if you're with us in a group, it's going to be more powerful. You with me?
so it's powerful
And
for anybody, but more for some.
it's more for some. And I do believe that's why we practice extending to those we know and love. If we're really good, we can practice those we know and hate, okay? But where there's knowing and love, there's more the family field there. And the family field is both a function of projection generationally, but it's also a function of transmission of the energy. But what you say, the morphogenic field is really part of this entire thing. And sometimes it can go this way, and sometimes it can deteriorate and lose what it's gained with equal speed. So let's continue on. Let's continue on. Yes, do you have to share an experience? It doesn't have to have conflict. But I'd like to ask one: are you working either the archetypal dimension? I'm trying to leave Namanikaya a little bit right now. Okay. Now there could be a Namanikaya source, but are you using the archetypical dimension or the Dharmakaya? What's the word? Undetermined potentiality. Do you have an example? Can you give us an example of that? Okay, great, good.
So last week I was on vacation.
Vacation? Where were you at, if you don't mind?
Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, perfect.
And in the process of getting there, I in essence missed 2 days of my vacation due to all sorts of
things not working well.
Transportation stuff and
Transportation stuff, lost luggage, and cold weather,
all that.
whales not getting to harbor, so the whole thing.
The whole deal.
And I was just kind of like doing great because it's indeterminate. I was just kind of writing that way. And then 2 days later, the smallest little thing happened.
What's that?
Didn't get to a place I wanted to get to that I was fixated on getting to. And so I treated the people I was with, I think the best way to put it is I was just a real asshole.
Mm-hmm. Nasty.
Nasty. So, and I wasn't aware of it till now, I ended up in conflict inside me with the indeterminate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Because I was fixated on what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was really pissed at the indeterminate. And then I was an asshole, so then I was in conflict with the group I was with.
Do you think God is indeterminate?
Totally.
Totally. What's it like to think that that word God is totally indeterminate?
At this point, of course. I mean,
That's it. But you're helping us. Oh, you're helping us articulate. This is in total respect for the name of Theos. How could God be determinate? How could God be determinate?
oh, that's easy.
How?
I just hold on to my favorite fixation.
Yes, that's how. That's how. Mhm. So, what's it like to feel your relationship to indeterminateness, and it's unfolding in you, even as we sit here right now?
When I'm in the field, because the fixatedness doesn't exist in the field,
That's true.
then to hold on to the indeterminate is this blissful, anarchistic, wild ride.
Yes. So Dharmakaya
What else to put it?
is an indeterminate place, huh?
Mhm.
And then as it manifests, determination becomes more possible. I'm gonna ask a question too, also, if you guys don't mind. If it's indeterminate and it's manifesting everything and anything, including that rumble you had, and including the archetype coming into you, and you running, you're coming around and punching out the guys, you with me? Which has its own power and excitement, huh? And benefit, and actual benefit. You know? Where is freedom at for us? If everything is the manifestation of primordial awareness, see my hand? Primordial awareness is moving my hand. Primordial awareness is giving this talk. Primordial awareness was talking through Tom. I'm not talking just about the good things. Skip was an asshole, and primordial awareness was manifesting in a fixated way on something. So where does where do you arrive? Where do you manifest? How do you manifest? Where's your freedom? Yes, Fran.
The example that came to my mind when you first posed this, maybe like half an hour ago, years ago when I was living in Boston, and I was, let's see, about 30 probably, and I,
A Ute.
maybe like between 30 and
Uh-huh.
35. And so I had started to go to Al-Anon, so I was having a little bit of insight, and I was moving out of like blaming my mother for everything to maybe the baby steps of being an adult woman. And I'm on the phone with her, and she had just recently discovered this big scandal where my father's, one of his very best friends who had had 9 children, was a big Catholic, selectman in the town I grew up in, had been having affairs for years. And these are all like Irish Catholic, perfect, his wife couldn't use birth control because they were such perfect Catholics.
Right.
And he had been having affairs. my mother was just beside herself. She got on the, we used to talk on Saturday mornings, and she got on the phone with me, and all she could say was how horrible his name happened to be Dick.
Archetypical designation.
What a terrible person, Dick Gallagher was because of, and what a phony, and then she went, and so I have to listen to this shit, and I'm got this big resentment going, and I listening to her, and she just won't stop, then she goes into, she catapults forward into, your father would do the same thing if I hadn't, if I hadn't done this, and if I hadn't, if it hadn't been for me, and if I hadn't put my foot down, if I don't let him go to your father go to bars, and your father would have done the same thing, which is absolutely ridiculous. And so I'm trying to reason with my mother, and my mother's just spinning higher and higher, ratcheting the going. So finally, I made the decision, to ask for help. I did not know how to make this conversation stop. And I was going to be another fight with my mother, another asinine fight with my mother. And I finally made the decision. I stepped out of the conversation. I actually put the phone away from my ear, and I could still hear her ranting on and on about Dick Gallagher. And
Gallagher's
I just said,
dick.
Please,
Okay.
God, help me. There's got to be another way. Please help me. Help me. I want to have a different ending to this, because it's
Different
I
end.
want to get off this stupid escalator that I'm on, this habit that we have of always doing this fight on Saturday mornings. And I didn't have an answer, but all of a sudden I said to her, "You're right. Dick Murphy that's his real name, is an asshole, and you're right. Dad would be exactly like him if it wasn't for you. Thank God you stepped in to prevent my father from
That's
being
right.
a philanderer." And there's complete silence on the other end of the phone. And then she started laughing. And she was laughing so hard, we couldn't even talk because we were both laughing. Because it was so ridiculous. That,
Very, very beautiful.
but the point was that there was a moment where I wanted something else. That I had been in this dance forever.
For your life, all your life.
And I feel like I'm in this dance now again. I'm in this sickening rehash most of the time in my mind of fear and confusion, and being willing to suspend and really ask for a different way, open my mind up, make a space inside of myself, or this Dharmakaya or the mom, just a shift. I want to be at a different level. I'm open to a possibility. It's that I opened myself to that pure potentiality
At that moment.
at that moment.
At that
And
moment.
I felt like it magically transformed.
Yep.
It gave me words. It gave me different
Energy.
energy.
Great. Let's pause. Can anyone describe the relationship to the archetypical in an explicit way, that they've been practicing invoking the archetypical dimension and the effect that it's had experientially on them, how they are in the world, that it actually has a definitive experience? Yes, and I'll add two people. Yes.
I go back when you start talking about this. I go back to I have a room in my house with all these archetypes. It's kind of like the basement here, but a much smaller version. All different archetypes. And I was in a state of, I'm going to call it despair. Just
Yeah, let's pass the mic here. She's in a state of despair.
I was in a state of despair, and I'm not sure what was any cause or whatever. And so, what I would do frequently, and I still do it, is I go to this room and I lie down on the table. It has a crystal grid underneath the table. There's crystals surrounding the whole room. There's the archetypes surrounding the whole room. And I put music on and I go into whatever it is that I'm with. So I just
Go into that experience.
I go I go, okay, this is where you are, so let's enter in.
Fundamental esoteric foundation.
So I have to meet it. I have to sit with it. And so I'm sitting and I'm lying down. And I'm aware that I'm on the table. And then there's a shift that happens. I go beyond being aware that I'm on the table. And I enter into the awareness that I'm viscerally feeling my legs move up. And I physically feel it. And I feel some other things going on. And as I'm feeling it, there's a part of me that wants to see whether this is really happening. But there's an in-between going. I'm kind of aware and then I'm not really aware. And I'm like, I want to lift my head up to look. And very, very strongly and viscerally, I feel this power pushing me back down on the table. Like I cannot move. Cannot move. And there's a moment there where I had a lot of fear that I couldn't determine something in my mind, I think. However, I chose at that moment to let go, to go deeper, to go with it. And once I went with it, it was like I experienced this lovely, beneficent, I cannot tell you, I'm not a seer, but I'm a feeler. It was support beyond anything that I've ever experienced in the physical world. And through that, it helped me really, I'm going to use these, depend.
Yes,
Depend on the archetypical in a way that I had never happened before.
That is a most beautiful story. For me, hearing it with you, it is an actuality, and you have the companionship of the archetypical dimension. For me, with you, it's Dakinis, you with me? And you have the companionship, and it's not simply like it's in me or in you. There is it is a companionship. It's both in us as like friends, and it's both around us. The companionship of the Dakini and the archetypes, and they start manifesting more and more and more. And there's a little text by David Germano, and she wrote the thing by it's on Longchenpa and the companionship with the Dakinis, and they describe. It's a text describing these experiences that Longchenpa had and people have. It's really quite beautiful.
Look it up.
And it's very real, and you feel yourself at times touched. Sometimes you can feel your like they're writing on you. You felt
Yes.
the writing. So the
Yes.
Dakinis actually
Yes.
come and you feel,
Yeah.
and they're writing on you, and you feel these letters,
Mm-hmm.
and they're writing on you, and they're saying you belong to them, and they belong to you. That realm is yours. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really so great, and you're entering that realm more and more and more. And that room where you had this taking place, I would even have it fix it like it more, and you're concretizing this stuff. Very beautiful and very helpful for all of us.
And I'd like to share with you how much fun it is to be with the Dakinis this weekend. You know, we went to New York, and there was the Dakinis there, and so what I did with my class at GW is I read your transliteration of Jetsam Trauma. Okay, I read that, and there was one student who said, "I don't know what you just did, but wow, I could really feel that." So it was so much fun to kind of do a full circle of that to someone who is not part of the basement, and someone who's just who's a student that I just met this semester. So it's so nice to feel that.
It's really useful for us to understand that the openness to the archetypical realm is in every person, and it's into all that's there in all of us. It's just that if we're located in mind alone, it's a little hard to see it. Let's see if one other person wants to share that archetypical experience. So, because yes, please.
So this is an. You asked how it translates to now. So it's an archetypical experience that actually has impact for me on the mnemonikaya level now,
Okay.
and it relates to you. And it happened probably over 25 years ago when I was living. Yep. And
The neighborhood.
yes, and you were coaching me on giving a talk,
Okay.
and you were having me speak from this place, and every time I took a breath, I would have to articulate it like this. Yes. And that was this very powerful thing for me, like bringing it down to the level of this, like a warrior coming in me. And on that night afterward, it was about 11 o'clock when I left here. And that night I left here and I was walking back to my house, which was my place, which was about 3 blocks away. And as I'm walking down the street, 2 African-American guys wearing warm-up suits came up next to me on both sides of me. And one of them was trying to grab my pocketbook and trying to pull it away from me. And out of, I have no idea, but it was just from what we were doing, this actual banshee scream came up. No! And I pulled back, and they ran. They were so shocked. They ran. And, it was an incredible thing for me to see that I had that power, because I think I've really grown up with a victim state most of my life. And how it shows up now is when I'm speaking, and I do a lot of work in front of groups, there's a point at which I am lost. And it's like I'm there, but I'm not there in my physical level. I'm physically giving the talk or whatever it is that I'm about, but I'm downloading, and it's just coming through me directly. And it's been ever since that experience.
So cool. I love that story. And we can pass it back here. So we all are trying to go a little further. End of this semester, we're ending up. The archetypical stuff will continue it on, but we're really thinking about our practicing. Praxis, P-R-A-X-I. Praxis is better than practicing. Praxis is our everyday way of accessing not only our mind and awareness, but accessing mind and awareness in the Manakaya, but actually accessing from within and around the archetypal dimension, and having an attunement to what one's fit for us. One can fit for me, but it may not have anything to do with you. You with me? And what it is to really bring forth in many situations this accessing of the Dharmakaya, which is nothingness, no thingness. And then also, I really loved how Laura brought up the issue of devotion and all this. This is not just simply a tough will, though having a tough will at times is really useful. Having what they call the Ikta Shakti, the Shakti of the creative will, huh? But the devotion, and as we do that. So let's see where we're at. We'll go around, everybody talk just for a moment, and we're going to just take about 2 minutes each. And Lorette, we can start with you. Where are you at in this endeavor?
Well, I was the story that came up for me that I wanted to say, because you brought it up again, was on devotion. That in 2 times, one with Guru Mai, where I was up there, and my skeptical mind I was having all of these levels of experience, and then we were going to go up to Darshan, and I was not going to bow down. I was just going to walk up there because that was all ridiculous, and it was like all these people doing all these things, and there I am in front of her, and I must disappear because then I'm flat on the ground, and I'm completely in some devotional place. And the other one was Neem Karoli Baba with Krishna Das and Ram Das in Hawaii, and going up to Darshan at his photo, and Ram Das is there, and I'm having a similar kind of experience. Like I don't really, my energetic field doesn't relate to Ram Das very well, and but there I am, and he does this thing, and then I am down once again at the photo of Neem Karoli Baba, and afterwards I'm standing, and my body is vibrating in a way that can almost not stand up, and some woman in the crowd has her arms around me and is having a similar kind of experience. So we're just, and this is a sense of this energy coming through as pure devotion. And it really doesn't, for me, have anything to do with Neem Karoli Baba or with Guru Mai, but through them, to me, is this opening to a state which is completely penetrated by devotion. And so in my life now, that there's a recognition beyond doubt of this experience that is incredibly sustaining.
Beautifully described. Beautifully described. Just briefly going to just share our experience where we're at with this topic. Just kind of throwing our hats in the ring if you want to.
I'm not coming up with anything right this moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel great and healthy.
Have you been practicing?
Yes.
What's it like to practice this stuff? Whatever that stuff is for you. What's it like to practice?
It's just being open to something bigger than myself, and not having any particular, since I'm not a visual person, not having any particular visual image of what that is, but just being open to possibilities.
What's the felt sense like as you do this? What's the felt sense that's emerging in you?
It's a more grounded, full, and empowered quality through my whole body.
Thank you so much. We'll pass the mic to someone else.
I just wanted to share that yesterday morning I had the honor of leading our meditation morning, And I was doing it for Patricia, who was feeling sick. And I had an issue where my alarm actually didn't go off, but I made it because there was a pounding knocking at my front door. And I woke up like, oh my God, who's at the front door? Like it was pounding fist on glass, right? Like pounding on, right? Boom, boom, boom. I go downstairs, no one's there. I'm like, okay, well, I'm awake. Thank you. Great, I'm up. And then in the meditation, is what I want to share. You know, we extended to each person and, you know, invoked the field and played music, da-da-da-da. And then we're silent for a long time. In the silence, I felt, and I hadn't invoked the Great Mother, but we collectively have been invoking the Great Mother. This month, in the silence, I felt a presence in my arms along the front of my body that I was holding. And my mind questioned it like, oh, is it that I want a baby? No, you know, like my mind was, but it didn't matter because it was there and I was holding it and it was pure nurturing love that I was feeling, that I was giving. And that went on for a long time, and my mind questioned it, but then I kept just doing it. Then, as people were wrapping up, repeatedly, people said, I felt totally held and nurtured this morning. I felt like I was wrapped up in the mother's arms. And it was so cool because I didn't know what was happening in my mind, but something was happening in the field that we all got to feel.
Beautifully described. And one of the things that teaches me is again our emotions. And this is the argument. All our emotions ultimately reflect the archetypical dimension. Emotions are both psychological, but in their more pristine way, they're also cosmological, like nurturing and war, all these things. So, and that's how the Vajrayana masters understand emotions. But there's an archetypical base, and so part of the play is our capacity to bring forth the archetypical base, which really does transform our emotional life. Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Mwah. Perfect.
Yeah. So what's coming up for me in this discussion is both the holding of the fear that I used to have around leading something, and so what I've really been in this vortex lately of it's not a particular archetype, but it's like the warrior leader, and with the whole Trump stuff going on, this call to action. Call to action. And it's not, I can trip myself up when I start thinking about it, but when I really just get into that field state, I just start acting. I start emailing, we need to do this and this needs to happen and we need to connect this community with that community, and it just, and then I like come out like, what did I just do today? You know, it's been happening a lot lately where it feels good. It's spontaneous and it's a little bit addictive because then it's a lot addictive. It's deliciously addictive.
Yeah. Next person. Thank you so much. Next we'll continue on with our sharing to where we're at.
So a couple weeks ago, I got an email from my mother-in-law, and my mother-in-law and my father have a kind of S&M kind of, relationship. I mean, it's not good. And my father's getting more sick, and so there's more involvement. He's 85. Okay. Yeah. And so basically, just to cut through, she's saying my dad was hospitalized in the ER room, and he has a strong will, so he wanted to get up and go to the bathroom. And she's saying, she's taking pictures of him. He has dementia. She's like really distorting this guy, just his good, So that's just classic. So it's like I'm getting drawn more and more into this field that's just very unhealthy as he gets sicker and there's more involvement between us. And so I got off the phone and I'm just like, no, I am not going to sit in this field in this way. Like, no, I'm not going to have this involvement with my father as he dies. And so it just really like evoked the archetypical, like, and then over like Sunday, he was hospitalized having a heart attack. And instead of being stuck in all their mishigash, I was just right there with him, walking him through his experience on the sort of the soul psychic level, and just really like getting what was going on, at just cutting through all that. And it was just like so liberating to that whole mess that they've got going. So, yeah.
At this time, in that place,
Yeah.
transmitting that to him,
Yeah.
which he understands at that level.
Absolutely.
We're going to pass the mic back, okay? We'll pick this up again next week. We won't be here the following week. Come back. Okay. We're not going to be, the week after, we'll be here next week. The week after that, we won't be here. We come back January 3rd. Is there a Wednesday, another 2 Wednesdays or 1 Wednesday?
January 4th.
January 4th. We come back January 4th. Okay, so I think we only missed 1 Wednesday.
Right.
I think. So for some reason, as she's describing that, I actually have a old video of Dorje Rinpoche teaching Dzogchen. I'd like to show it sometime, but it's very grainy. But as he's teaching Dzogchen, these postures and things, there comes a point, he says, as you enter the different dimensions of your own awareness, there comes a moment when you begin to experience everything and everyone as the deities. You actually start to have clear experience. That door's opening for you, right, of the deities. When you get that face, you experience that as the deity. That dimension comes through us. With that, thank you guys. See you guys next week. Rub our hands together. I know some of you guys are going. Are you going on your trip soon? Carolyn, you're going? You're going to be here next week? I'll be here. Okay. My trip was last week. Oh, that trip was last week. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, this Saturday, we'll do Dakini Day this Saturday. And I'm going to start putting... I want to complete the Vajra Kalaya practices. Lama Torchen was a super master of that, the carrier of the lineage. And I'm going to put the Vajra Kalaya back on to complete that. Because the Vajra Kalaya is not about a little knife. It's about how to work with cutting through phenomena, ultimately.
Rudy, did you ever get my email?
What's your email thing? Are you free? Are you free by chance Friday at 11? If you're not, do not worry about it.
I could do something.
Would you want to come Friday at 11?
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be great. Without killing yourself.
No, it'll be fine. I actually have Friday morning open.
Is that okay with you?
It's fine.
I'll see you Friday at 11.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Good. Thank you. Great. You're coming into your power, though.
Totally. But I feel
You're gonna have cow. Yes, you have to be in the field with that. If you don't go in the field, nothing can happen. And you suffer too much in it.
Go to the membership, like click any email at the bottom and it says visit your group. And then once you visit your group, there's a thing called the membership wizard. And the membership, I swear to you, I did not make this up. And if you go to the membership wizard, I think that's the page that I sent you. And then you just click on that and it tells you what to do. Because I think what you, I'm on a different. Yeah, I think it's the fact that we're mailing it from different email. My guess is that what's happening is that somewhere you have the ability to get your send emails forwarded. So not on under the other new Gmail. So other than that, the only way I can get it is I'm receiving them. I don't get how you're getting them. Get Laura to help me. I'm happy to. Look at it. Well, maybe we can do a tech blitz. You sit there and are you coming tomorrow? Friday. Yeah. I'm just emailed you. Yeah. I'm gonna go. I'm going. Before you came down, that's the whole point. We're gonna do stuff.
Thank you. Awesome. So next year I would love to come. We do have my friend performing at the 9:30.
Yeah, you mentioned that. That's gonna be fun. But I left with that point where my brain is not really quite functioning right. So we're gonna do stuff that's about right.
See you next week.
I'm starting to feel it. This is fabulous. Oh my God. No, I can coming back in.
I couldn't find a bottle. I must have finished mine.